Hey folks, welcome to Module 2. In this module, our expert will teach us some vital cold call scripting strategies. So get ready to take some notes and let's jump right in.
So before we even get to what you're going to say to the decision maker once you get them on the phone, we need to figure out what you're going to say to the gatekeeper. And there's several ways and several different philosophies when it comes to dealing with gatekeepers. Some people say engage them in conversations, flatter them, be really kind to them, and all that sort of stuff. And you should certainly be kind to anybody who you speak to. But time and time again, we've found that the more short and brief your lines are to the gatekeeper, the more effective you'll be. Specifically, if you use wording that keeps you in control, that closes off and decreases the chances of them asking reactionary questions, and kind of puts the pressure on and makes it feel like they have an obligation to get you to the decision maker, you're going to have much more success in those cases. And that's why this script, as simple, as quick, and maybe even curt, possibly borderline rude as it might seem, this is actually the best script we can recommend for getting through the gatekeeper. Literally say the name of the person that you're trying to reach, just their name, and then the words please and thanks. Bob Lance, please, thanks. Now they're going to say, may I ask who's calling? And you're going to say, it's Michael Scotch, thanks. Just say your name. That's it. Then they're going to ask, what's this in regard to? Or are they expecting you? Something along those lines. Your answer? Just let them know it's regarding Michael Scotch. Thanks. Sounds weird, sounds awkward, but it's been proven to work, and that person is very likely to forward you on to the person who you're asking for. Now, if you can't get through the gatekeeper for some reason, you can always go around them. Now, we talked about this method earlier for intelligence gathering, meaning asking people about who's the head of this department or that department, what's their name, etc., etc. This actually works very well for getting around the gatekeeper and getting to the decision makers as well. Now, the thing about people in the accounting and the sales departments, for example, as well as other departments, but those are the two big ones, is that they're not trained to be gatekeepers or to screen calls. So if you talk to them in a business-like manner, as though you're on a mission and you're just doing a routine call and you got to talk to so-and-so, and you know their first name. Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Bob. Is Bob in? Hey, do you know the number for Bob's office? Hey, can you put me through to Bob Lance? There's a much higher percentage chance that they're going to put you through to Bob Lance or give you his direct number or something along those lines because they're not trained to screen calls. They could care less, and just like with receptionists in many cases, people who are in accounting and sales, they don't want to be bothered by you. So you become a hot potato and they just want to pass you on to the person you want to speak to so they don't have to deal with you. Okay? So that's another option. It's an alternative option to get through the gatekeeper, is to literally just go around them to get to who you're talking to. Now, once you do finally get the decision maker on the phone, there's a couple of approaches, okay? The traditional approach is fine if you have it really streamlined, really clean cut, and really optimized. And that's basically this. You're going to say, hi, Bob. Use their first name. Hi, Bob. Michael Scotch here. Don't ask how they're doing. Don't ask, is this a good time? Although there is a separate tactic that you can use that hinges on the phrase, is this a good time? But we're not using that right now because we don't want to introduce the opportunity for a no answer. We don't want to start no's. That's a behavioral pattern that begins. Once someone gives you one no, there can be a lot of no's after that. We don't want that. We want to maintain and optimize this conversation for positive answers. Okay? So, hi Bob, Michael Scotch here. I'm calling because I noticed your company is expanding quite a bit this year, or whatever the plausible, relatable reason is, okay? It needs to be something believable. Oh, okay, yeah, you probably heard that we're expanding, or, X, Y, Z. So there's a reason you're calling, and then you're giving them a proposition. My company provides printing services at super discounted rates that can help you save a ton of money on your marketing campaigns. Okay, whatever your value proposition is, lay it out clearly, have it rehearsed, okay? Make sure it's a 1 or 2 line sentence that works really well. And then, is that something you'd be interested in discussing at some point in the future? Now, the importance of that question is that it's an easy yes. It's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely that they're going to say no. You gave them a very valuable proposition, and just because of the friendly way that you asked, they're going to feel bad about saying no. There's a very high chance that they're going to say yes, Who would say no to that? It's such an open-ended thing. You're not saying, hey, can I have a meeting with you tomorrow at 8? It's a very open-ended question. And you're probably going to get a yes. Now, once they give you a yes or a sure, then you say, what will work better for you, Wednesday or Thursday, or whatever day of the week you want to use. But the point here is you want to give them 2 choices to pick from. You don't want to say, can I call you on such and such day? You don't want to do that. You don't want to say, does next week work for you? You don't want to say that. Because guess what? They don't want to deal with you. They don't like you. They don't want to do business with you. Some of them might, if you did a really good job with your reason and your value proposition. But most of them, even if they really need what you're offering, and even if later on they would agree that it was a good thing that they did business with you, initially, the psychological situation that they're in is that they want you off the phone. So if you give them an opportunity to say no, if you ask a question that is either a yes or a no, there's a very good chance that they're going to say no. Okay, especially if it's specific. Up here with the, would you like to discuss that at some point in the future? That's so vague and nebulous and open-ended that it's hard to say no to that. But when you say, can I call you tomorrow or next week? The answer is yes or no, and you're risking a no, and it's just not a good idea. It's much better to give them a choice between 2 options, Wednesday or Thursday. Now, they might not pick one of those 2 options. More often than not, they will. But at least you're not giving them an opportunity for a direct no, right? Once you do have them agreeing to a specific day that might work, then the next question, same principle applies. Don't say, can I call you at 7? Say, does something in the AM work for you? Or would something in the afternoon be better? Or if you want to get specific, that's fine, but make sure it's specific with more than one option. I could call you around 9, or would something closer to, say, 2 or 3 in the afternoon be better? Okay, give options so that they can choose from, and it's harder for them to say no. Now, this works. If you do this traditional approach, we're going to talk about a more unorthodox one later, but if you do this in a streamlined, buttoned up, very well executed fashion like this, you're going to have people committing to appointments, okay? Which is the whole point of the cold call. You're not trying to close a sale here. You're trying to close a future discussion. You're trying to close on a sales call in the future, okay? Now, there's another alternative to one of these sentences, okay? And that is the, value proposition combined with the would you like to discuss in the future. And that is the hypothetical question approach. You want this to act as a hook. You want to get this out in the first 10 to 15 seconds of having them on the phone. And you want it to be something that it's impossible for them not to be interested in. Okay? So you take your value proposition and you state it as a question, a hypothetical question. So in this case, if I could get you super discounted printing services and save you 30 to 40% on your marketing campaigns, is that a discussion you'd be interested in having at some point in the future? Right? So we're using the open-ended, easy yes question at the end, but it's based on an if, a hypothetical if, in which you actually make a big, bold claim, something that really hooks them. You phrase your value proposition in that manner, and you can get some success that way as well. Now, here's a few tips that you can apply to those calls. The first one is to preface your appointment request with, I know you're busy. Okay? That's a very powerful thing you can do to disarm them, to make people put their guard down, is acknowledge that they don't want to be on a cold call right now. I've got things going on. I don't want to commit to things. I've got a million things on my desk here, right? That's what's going on in their mind. So if you preface your request for a meeting, for a talk, a discussion in the future with, hey, I know you're busy. I want to get off the phone as quickly as possible. I want to let you get back to what you're doing. Can we discuss this at some point in the future? Well, all you're doing is adding ammo there to the yes, to the possibility of a yes. All you're doing, because at that point, the way you phrased it, the way you framed it, not only is it an open-ended question, would you like to discuss this in the future sometime, but it's also introducing the motive of getting you off of the phone, of getting them off of this cold call with you so they can get back to what they're doing. So suddenly their escape from being on a cold call, an unwelcome cold call, is to say yes to the discussion question. So you've got to pay attention to the psychology here. So instead of just, is that something you're interested in discussing in the future? Hey, I know you're really busy. Is this something that you want to discuss maybe sometime in the future, in the coming weeks? All right. and that really works. Don't use the word appointment. Okay, we call it appointment setting. That's the actual practice that we're doing, right? But you don't want to actually use the word appointment because there's too much negative stigma and connotation, subconscious, psychological negative stigma with that word. It sounds like more of a commitment than it actually is. People think of other things like dental appointments and so on and so forth. The word appointment, throughout the entire history of a human being's life, rarely means something good or enjoyable or fun. So let's not use that in the sales conversation when we're trying to get them to commit. Okay, discussion would be a phrase to use. You can use phrases like, I'd like to pencil in, some time on your calendar, or I'd like to, lock in a day next week, or, something along those lines. Try not to use the word appointment about these appointments. And then agree, don't argue. If they hit you with objections like, I don't have time, or we're already happy with what we've got, make sure that your response is phrased in a way in which you agree with them, which you acknowledge what they're saying. So, now we're really busy. We don't really have time. Oh, I totally understand. Yeah, of course you're really busy. Could we do this next week? How about the end of next week? Can I get 10 minutes with you then? We already have a provider who does XYZ service for us right now, and we're happy with them. Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm glad you're happy with them. They sound like a great company. But let me ask you this. If I could save you 30% on XYZ service, or if I could get you 20% better results than that company, is that a discussion that would be worth having for about 10 minutes? I'm not saying that that's going to be a winning line, but it's important that however you respond to objections, you want to try to do it in a way that sounds like you're agreeing at the beginning of your response. Don't get into an argument. Don't say yes, but. Okay, don't say, well, that company probably sucks. I can do better. Don't get cocky. Agree with everything that they're saying and then turn it into a reattack. Now, there's something else we can discuss here before we get to the unorthodox approach, and that is a last-ditch attempt. If you can't quite get a meeting with someone, okay, whether it be a phone meeting or an in-person meeting, there's a tactic that you can utilize in which you're making a very low commitment, very benign request of being able to drop off some information. And the way that this is phrased, the concept of, hey, can I just drop off some information, similar to, hey, can I just send you an email? It's actually effective because the person sees that as their escape from the conversation. Oh, of course, yeah, send me some information. I'll have a look when I get some time. That's great. Now, 90% of the time, they may never look at the information, right? But in their mind, they see that as an escape, as a way to get out of this conversation and out of the commitment of setting an appointment, all without having to be rude or hurt your feelings. So it's a win-win. They love it, right? But on your end, you're not really interested in the packet of information. What you're interested in is manufacturing a situation where you do get an impromptu meeting with them. So as soon as they say yes to that question, hey, would it be all right if I drop off a packet of information you can just have a look at sometime at your leisure? As soon as they say yes, you take that yes, you grab it, and you leverage it. They say, yeah, sure, that'd be fine. You say, okay, and who can I drop that off with? Have you got a reception area outside your office? And they'll say yes. And you say, great. And just on the off chance you happen to be around, pay close attention here. Great. And just on the off chance you happen to be around when I drop it off, would it be all right if I call on you from the reception desk just to see if you've got a couple minutes? If not, no big deal, right? But just on the off chance you're around, would it be okay if I poke my head in and say hi? And this phrase, just so we can put a face to a name, that kind of thing. Now that's very effective as well. And this just all sounds so innocent. It all sounds so benign and non-threatening that they're going to say yes. Now, they might say yes reluctantly, but they don't really have a choice at that point because they've already said yes to you coming by to drop off the packet of information, right? So it might be a reluctant yes. It might be a conditional yes. Well, yeah, maybe, but I'm probably not going to be available. And that's fine. Just take that. Take that for what it's worth. And then you close off with, okay, and what time of day would you most likely be around? If I wanted to just say hi when I drop that off. I know there's no guarantees, you might not be available, but just out of curiosity, what time of day would you be most likely to be around? And they're not going to say, to heck with you, and hang up at this point. At this point, you've got them into a pattern of yeses. They're going to probably, now they might lie, but they're going to give you a time of day that they're more likely to be around. And you take that and you run with it, and you drop off your packet of information. You say hi to the receptionist, and you say, by the way, is he around? Poke your head around a little bit. Bob said it was all right if I say hi to him when I drop this off. Is he around? That kind of thing. You leverage that. And it's a great last-ditch way to get an appointment, even if they're not willing to pencil one in on their calendar. Okay? Now, next, let's talk about the unorthodox approach that I mentioned earlier. Now, this one, it's iffy. It's pretty ballsy. And there's not a whole lot of data out there worldwide on how well it works. It was actually created by a guy, or at least it's championed and spread by a guy in the UK named Benjamin Dehenny. And he tells everybody about this method, and it makes sense why this would work, because of how novel and unprecedented it is. So instead of saying the traditional lines, you just come right up front, total transparency, and acknowledge that you're doing something that they don't want you to do, right? Something that's slightly annoying, with a little bit of humor, sort of a nudge kind of thing. Hi, Bob. I want to be up front with you. As soon as you get on the phone with him. Hey, Bob, I want to be up front with you. This is actually a sales call. Do you want to hang up on me now? Or can I have 30 seconds to make a quick pitch, and then we can hang up if you're not interested? Most people have never heard that line before, and they will sometimes even tell you, wow, I've never heard that one before. You'll get people chuckling and, sort of giving you a pat on the back for saying something that actually got them to stay on the phone for, 30 seconds longer than they otherwise would have for other cold callers. Okay, now there's no guarantee this will work in your market. It's always good to split test these different approaches. But this one's pretty neat just because of the novelty. It's a pattern interrupt. It's not what they're used to hearing from a cold caller. And many times, just because of the novelty, or maybe sometimes because they feel a little bit sorry for you, they'll say, sure, you can have 30 seconds. Sometimes they'll say, something like, well, I'll give you 15, or something like that. But that's your chance to make your pitch. And hopefully your pitch, your value proposition, all that good stuff is well rehearsed, and you make it within about 30 seconds. And the key is when you get to the end, hopefully you had a good hook, and what you've said has made them want to stay on the phone longer. But the key is once you get to 30 seconds, you acknowledge that your time's up. Okay, and you ask for more. You say, hey, even if they're talking, if they're answering a question, like if your hook or your opening includes a question and they're answering it, you don't interrupt in a rude way, but at the first available moment, step in and say, hey, I just want to be honest. I want to keep myself honest here. I asked for 30 seconds and the time is up. Can I have another minute? We did just hit the 30-second mark. I appreciate you giving me that much time. Can I have another minute? And you just go from there. Okay, so it's an interesting new development in the world of sales, and I would say use it with caution, but don't be afraid to split test new concepts like this when you're doing cold calls. Okay, now all the stuff we talked about, it's probably scary to a lot of people. Some of you might find it exciting, and you're excited to get out there and give it a try. But the question comes down to, do you want to do it yourself? Is this something that you actually want to do on the phone yourself? Or would you rather have a sales team or someone else do it for you? And we're going to talk about that option in the next module.